Good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night, or good morning, depending on what time of day it may be when you see and hear this video. Hi, my name is Susan, and welcome to Lip Lock No More. We're going to take a little stroll quickly down memory lane, 10 months in to the case of missing Summer Wells, who disappeared on the 15th of June of 2021 at the age of 5. Of course, at the time of this broadcast, by the way, full credit goes to WJHL, and there will be a link provided in the description below to this particular piece. District Attorney Dan Armstrong is going to explain his role in the search for Summer Wells, and I will pause and comment a time or two therein. By the way, I had hoped to go live today. I'm doing this instead because my hubby is on staycay again, and we have a lot going on outside. So, hopefully, new subs and OGs. And welcome to everyone, by the way, very quickly. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Let's just have a quick reminder here of something.
Much. Normally, we hear from a district attorney general about prosecutions, but what happens when there's nothing to prosecute?
Tonight,
What happens when there's nothing to prosecute?
we continue our investigation.
I would also want to point out in this case something that I have been saying for quite some time. Not since the beginning. The beginning, I mean, of this channel. No, the first year and a half into Summer's case, most of you probably now would not want to watch me. However, some changes have been made here, and I have a bit different attitude in how I approach things. Anyway, moving on. We'll talk about that in a live stream, okay? We'll explain the history of the channel here and how particular changes have been made. But here's the point I wanted to make. Beg your pardon. Yeah. When there isn't anything to prosecute, there are a large number of channels on this platform being YouTube, where these folks refer to themselves as true crime channels. Yet they cover, and have been for several years, a number of cases that are, at least at this point, merely missing people. So I want to out loud ask something that I have put in almost every comment section and chat box I have been in regards to the missing. When did you people decide, you people being those who claim to be true crime, when did you decide that a missing persons case is automatically a crime, that a crime was involved? Why aren't you covering Summer Wells' case as a missing persons case? Because right here, there isn't anything to prosecute. That means that as far as law enforcement and Dan Armstrong is concerned, no crime has been committed. Therefore, it is not a case to be handled by true crime channels, unless they cover it with the caveat that we aren't covering tonight or today, whatever, a crime, we're covering a missing person, and keep it to that. And I say that with a guilty conscience, by the way.
Investigation into finding out what happened to Summer Wells. Ansley Daniels spoke with District Attorney General Dan Armstrong in his first interview about the case and what his role is almost 10 months in when no one has been charged.
When no one has been charged.
On the night of June 15th, District Attorney General Dan Armstrong called in the TBI to help with the search for Summer Wells in the Beach Creek community. Now, as the 10-month mark is approaching, his role is looking ahead to the possibility of charges.
His role is looking ahead to the possibility of charges. Now, we're almost 4 years into Summer's case. This was 10 months in. But his role, I think we can safely assume, at least at this point, is still looking ahead to the possibility of charges.
A case that has implications of the legal system and the law, but
it is a case that has implications of the legal system and the law. And sorry about the kitty cat walking between me and thee. I have 4 very unruly ginger tabbies in my office right now, and they don't seem to respect the fact that I'm trying to make a video. And the way I do things around here, which is pretty hokey, I'm not going to begin again. We're just going to press on through.
you couldn't classify it right now as there's no criminal charges been filed.
No criminal charges have been filed. Therefore, this is not a true crime case.
Older brothers were put into CPS custody last July, but no charges have been filed over their removal.
If you do leave a comment under this video, please do not say anything at all about Summers Brothers.
However, their father, Don Wells, is serving time in the Hawkins County Jail over DUI and violation of probation charges.
This is a very complicated issue.
This is a very complicated issue that has been made more complicated by the players in this drama. Ever since this broadcast, that phrase alone has tripped my trigger every time I not only hear it, see it, but every time I think of it. Made more complicated by the players in this drama. And you bitches and you motherfuckers know exactly who you are. And guess what? Those of us out here with any discernment whatsoever know exactly who he is referring to, don't we?
It has been made more complicated by the players in this drama.
No one has
Such an interesting way to put it. No one has been arrested or charged in relation
been arrested or charged in relation to the little girl's disappearance, but
to Summer's disappearance. Therefore, it's not a true crime case. It is a case of a missing child with an active Amber Alert. Therefore, it is the child, not the players in the fucking drama.
but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen at some point.
We
Doesn't mean it couldn't happen at some point.
make ourselves available to both Sheriff's Office and the TBI to advise them as to the consequences.
To advise them as to the consequences of the next step that they're proposing to take. I find that a very interesting way to put it as well. Advise them as to the consequences of the next step that they are proposing to take. I wish I could go live today. I had hoped to go live today and have a little bit of fun doing a civics 7th grade level, entry level to civics, and to discuss the sunk cost fallacy. By the way, Granny's watching, another channel here on YouTube. Thank you for taking note of my reference to the sunk cost fallacy in regards to what is going on in a totally different arena here on YouTube. I reposted on my community tab this morning. Now let's get back to this. Advise them as to the consequences of the next step. When we get to go live, I hope to remember to discuss some of the phraseology and choices of words. Now, I want to say here, not to be an asshole or to be totally rude, but I don't really think that Mr. Armstrong is the sharpest tool in the box. But he is the district attorney. But some of his wording makes me go,
Of the next step that they're proposing to take and how we can do it to where if there is eventually a prosecution, it'll be...
To where if we can do it, if there eventually is a prosecution. Meaning there is not currently a prosecution, now almost 4 years in, which means this is not a true crime case.
What they gather will be something that would be that we could introduce in a court, make sure we cover all those bases. And
If an arrest ever does.
Make sure we cover all those bases. Mr. Armstrong, everybody knows that I have absolutely no faith whatsoever in the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department. Not only in regards to Summer Wells, but to any fucking thing else. Considering, as a rude yet somewhat friendly reminder, that Ronnie Lawson, the sheriff of Hawkins County, was neck deep in motherfucking alligators regarding his RSO son, Brandon Lewis Lawson, at the time of Summer's disappearance. I got a feeling that department's focus was somewhere else. I could be wrong. It's merely my opinion. I'm entitled to one.
Does take place, that's when Armstrong will look at what charges can be filed.
if it ever got to the point where we were ready to consider charges, then of course they would talk to me about what charges and who to charge. And,
Yep, they would.
And a case like this would generally
go to the grand jury.
Got to that point.
Armstrong
Would generally go to the grand jury if it ever got to that point. Well, Mr. Armstrong, we're almost 4 years into Summer's disappearance, and evidently nothing has been brought to you that you deem of evidentiary value to go to the grand jury. So, as a loving, gentle, edgy reminder, this is not a true crime case. It's the case of a missing child. Oh, how I wish we had handled it better from the beginning.